Good morning. I call this hearing to order. President Trump has made improving our nation's infrastructure a top priority. Infrastructure is critical to our nation's prosperity. The Senate Environment and Public Works Committee has jurisdiction over our nation's highways and roads, its locks and dams, and its ports. These things allow for American goods to go from the heartland to the coasts and even overseas. They allow for flood protection for both rural and urban communities that save lives. In addition, our committee has jurisdiction over the environmental laws that impact the modernization of infrastructure. It doesn't matter whether the setting is urban or rural, rules and regulations can halt and delay the modernization of infrastructure, and the impact is particularly counterproductive if they're applied without understanding the difference between urban and rural. Our committee has members from both urban and rural areas. The members of this committee represent New York City and Newport, Rhode Island, Nebraska City, Nebraska, and Natchez, Mississippi, Wheatland, Wyoming, and even the town of Wyoming, Delaware. The diversity of these cities and towns makes it clear that solutions to address and pay for fixing our nation's crumbling roads, bridges, and dams cannot be one size fits all. What works for Baltimore, Maryland might not work for Baggs, Wyoming. Big-ticket products or projects on the scale of the Big Dig in Boston that cost billions of dollars, or even projects that cost hundreds of millions of dollars, are rare in rural and small states. Funding solutions that involve public-private partnerships, as have been discussed by administration officials, may be innovative solutions for crumbling inner cities, but do not work for rural areas, as today's testimony will show. As was stated in the written testimony submitted today on behalf of Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota, quote, public-private partnerships and other approaches to infrastructure investment that depend on a positive revenue stream from a project are not a surface transportation infrastructure solution for rural states. This committee has a number of members who represent smaller rural states: Delaware, Alabama, Alaska, Iowa, Nebraska, Rhode Island, Vermont, just to name a few. We didn't forget West Virginia. I want to ensure that the voice of these states is not lost in the overall discussion of how to fix our nation's infrastructure. I want to work with my colleagues to address issues important to our states while also not ignoring the legitimate needs of large metropolitan areas as well. Stated in the written testimony submitted by the 5 western states that I referenced earlier, federal highways in our rural states enable, quote, agriculture, energy, and natural resource products which largely originate in rural areas to move to national and world markets. This is true. It makes no sense that to simply fix the roads and ports in our urban areas while ignoring the roads and inland ports in our rural areas that allow for products from Wyoming, Nebraska, or Iowa to get to the world markets. As testimony today will demonstrate, rural water systems also have unique challenges. They've been inundated by regulations from the EPA which harms their ability to modernize and to function. Rural water systems are challenged by the same regulations that big city water systems face, yet do not have the same resources to comply. Any infrastructure solutions this committee considers should help address rural challenges. These challenges include funding. Like their road project counterparts, these systems are not the best candidates for loans. It's important to note written testimony today from Mike McNulty, the General Manager of the Putnam Public Service District in West Virginia. He states, due to a lack of economies of scale and lower medium household incomes in rural America, water infrastructure is often less affordable, a much greater cost per household. This means that a water infrastructure project poses a greater financial risk compared to the metropolitan project, and very importantly, he says, requires some portion of a grant, not just a loan, to make the project feasible. The higher the percentage of grants required to make a project work results in less money repaid to the infrastructure funding agency and a correlating diminution of the corpus fund. So we're going to have to find new ways to help pay to modernize these important rural projects. It's my hope that this committee will work to find solutions that not only work for urban America, but rural America as well. I urge my colleagues to work with me in a bipartisan way to find these solutions. With that, I turn to the ranking member for his statement.